Hello, my name is Kirioth, and we are back. Yes, we're finally back. It's been a week. God, it's been a bit of a week. So, the lack of videos over the last week has been down to the birth of my new baby daughter, called Cara, and she arrived at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Not yesterday, but the Monday before. You know, when you've got a 2-year-old, and you've got a newborn baby, it's kind of difficult to keep up with everything, so that's why there was a lack of videos last week. Just been getting back into the rhythm of things, getting back into the groove. So apologies for the lack of content there, but not a huge amount I could do about it. And to be honest, it was kind of nice to spend that week with my family, getting used to the new baby and so on. Yesterday was mostly down to the fact that again, I could not record because one of my daughters, the one that isn't tiny, just would not shut the hell up. I mean that in the nicest way possible. And obviously I love her dearly, but Jesus Christ, she would not go down for a nap. She's being so noisy that I literally couldn't record because she was louder than I was. So, kids, what are you going to do? Anyway, we're back into it. First thing before we go into this video is the competition. So, there is the giveaway that's closed now. It is closed. You cannot enter it now. You had a week. I gave you a week and a day for the Space Marine Bike Force, which it was like 3 boxes of bikes, 2 attack bikes, and a Storm Talon. And I will announce the winner for that probably closer to the end of this week. I left things deliberately vague when I did the competition, and that was primarily because I knew that the baby would arrive at some point in the very near future, and that it could throw things off slightly. But the cut-off date was the 31st of March. It's now the 3rd of April. I will announce the winner as soon as I possibly can. There's a lot of comments to go through, but I will go through them and I will pick someone. I haven't forgotten. Don't worry, we'll get there. So for today's video, I thought we'd just ease into things, just slide in, just gently kind of, I don't know where I'm going with this. I thought we'd start with something nice and simple, nice and easy, because at some point I want to talk about all the massive Drukhari stuff that's happened, but we'll save that for tomorrow. Bashing the microphone around. Today I'm going to shamelessly nick a whole load of stuff that I've seen from other places that I've read up on in the week that I haven't been able to record anything, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Sisters of Battle stuff, because there's so much kind of speculation, guesswork, assumptions, requests, what we'd like to see, stuff like that. So I thought we would do a little bit of that ourselves. We talk about kind of what I would expect us to see out of the Sisters of Battle Codex and the new Sisters of Battle Army. Obviously that's not coming out until 2019, so I've got plenty of time to actually see what they've got in store for them, and they will be sharing the process with us. But there's a few things that I think are worth talking about just in general when it comes to the Sisters of Battle, because there are a few points of contention, I think is the way to put it. The first thing is a recurring topic that has been going on for, like a discussion that's been going on for a long time, which is boob plate. So the very exaggerated armour that the Sisters of Battle wear, where you can definitely tell that they're women, to put it mildly. And that debate is something that I don't think will ever change, even if the armour itself does. But I don't think there's any need for the armour itself to completely be reworked. I think the key for that, as with a lot of things, not just in the hobby but in life in general, is choice. Now when it comes to the boob plate debate, I don't really have a side. On the one hand, I think that actually Sisters of Battle have a very distinctive look to them, something that you can't really mistake them for anything else. Even Sisters of Silence, despite the fact that they have a sort of similar kind of presence in terms of the models, you can't really mistake Sisters of Silence for Sisters of Battle. They have a very unique and distinct silhouette, and that's something that I don't know whether I would necessarily want to change. On the other hand, I am one of those people who does not have any models that don't have helmets on. I just far prefer, especially Space Marines, to have helmets on. It's like you've been given this armour that can stop pretty much nothing short of a bloody tank shell. Why do you have your face just out in the open? It's one of the reasons that I think I never really got into actually collecting a full-on Space Wolves army. I thought about it a few times, but I just couldn't handle the lack of helmets, and I figured they'd look a bit weird without them, because everyone has Space Wolves without helmets. got around it with my 13th company back in the day because I had loads of spare helmets, and they were 13th company. They didn't need the extra protection, being in the warp and so on. But from that point of view, as someone who prefers that because it adds a mild hint of realism, and let's face it, 40k is not realistic in the slightest, but the whole boot plate thing is pretty daft. It doesn't really make any sense kind of anatomically, and it doesn't really make any sense in terms of creating sufficient protection for the wearer. It's not really a good idea. But at the same time, this is 40k. Everything has to be distinctive and over the top. And, you know, taking that into account, I can see why people like it. The choice should be there. Don't get rid of the old armour. Don't remove it completely. Don't just sort of ditch it and go, well, people complain about this, so we're not going to do it anymore. Give people the choice. Because there are people who will use that older style of armour, who will look at the kind of more feminine aspect of it and go, yes, that is what I want. I mean, it's the Sisters of Battle. It's how they've looked for ages. And there'll be those who, to be honest, like me, will kind of look at it and go, I kind of want something a bit chunkier, a bit more, not androgynous, that's not the right term, because I think that's irrelevant when it comes to armour design. Even in the context of what the Sisters of Battle are, I still think it's kind of irrelevant in a way. I just prefer something chunkier and a bit less obviously feminine. Does that defeat the point of Sisters of Battle, though? I don't know. I'm kind of torn either way, which is why I think it should be an optional thing. They should just do both. Have a newer design and have the ability to use older design armour as well. In fact, having just said that I'd probably use newer design, I'd probably use a mix of both, because I would like to show where the Sisters of Battle came from and have that older feel to them, whilst also enjoying the new aspect of things that you got with things like Primaris and stuff. Like that was one of the things I really liked about the Primaris Marines, is the fact that they are recognisably Space Marines, but the armour is that much sleeker, it's that much more modern. For that reason, I'd quite like something similar done to Sisters of Battle. At the same time, I think the older Space Marine armour, in many cases, looks pretty badass, like the Mark II and the Mark III. They look kind of cool. So, choice. Just give us choice. In terms of actual expansion of the Force, I really hope they don't squander what is an opportunity to create a fully rounded out army. I mean, something that I've wanted for ages and ages, is Terminator equivalents for Sisters of Battle. Because really, there's nothing to stop that. There's nothing that says that can't happen. And if you go back, especially into like the Horus Heresy, you had people who, I mean, look at Core Pharaon, for God's sake. The dude was like, what, 90 or something? Was walking around in Terminator plate. It's perfectly doable. It's perfectly possible. Something that breaks up the silhouette of the army, I'm always a fan of. It's one of those things where I think a lot of the visual impact of an army can be gained from the variety that is contained within it. It's one of the reasons I like the Knight Armiger so much, and why I'm loving that new Knight that I think we've seen more information about that yet, have we? The one that basically looks like a mini warlord. And he said warhound, not the same thing. More variation is good, and Sisters of Battle previously for me didn't have that variation, so I'd like to see something done with that. I don't think it's totally beyond kind of possibility. I think it's something that could happen, but maybe it would require a little bit more pushing to achieve, because it's very easy to look at this kind of thing and go, well, that's what they've always looked like, that's how they've always been, we'll just remake them. I think that would be missing an opportunity. It's the same thing with things like vehicles. Well, I suppose technically weapons on vehicles. Having various Rhino-based vehicles is all very well, but in that respect, it doesn't really separate them from Space Marines all that much. It's more power armor supported by more Rhinos. Again, I'd like to see them have something a little more unique to themselves, even if it's just a different pattern of Rhino that has a slight change in terms of its external appearance, and that's it. Just that little bit extra to just break it up a little bit. A lot of the things that I'm hoping for, admittedly, are a mix of basically just visual and personality changes. Things that will keep them looking like Sisters of Battle, keep them as the force that we want them to be, whilst also expanding them a little bit so that they're not quite as homogenous with the rest of the Imperium stuff. Because let's face it, we have enough Space Marines, we have enough Space Marine chapters, we have enough Primaris Marines. Sisters of Battle, I don't think should just be women in power armor. There should be something that's done to elevate them above that somewhat. I mean, bringing back things like the Penitent Engine for a start would be amazing. If we could have a larger version of that, maybe a couple of versions of that, maybe even expand on that more, so we see more things like Flagellants, the weird dudes with the flails on their arms, those lads. The Sisters of Repentia, again, that is like another very uniquely Sisters of Battle thing. Bringing that stuff back, but with a nice kind of like modern twist, I think would add a lot to the army without necessarily taking anything away. I'd like to see a big push in terms of introducing them more into the story as well. I feel like with the release of the new codexes, we've had a lot of extra information on a lot of different races. We've had a lot of stuff where, you know, things have been fleshed out. I mean, the Tower Codex, whilst it wasn't that exciting in comparison to, say, the Necron Codex, which in turn didn't seem to be that exciting in comparison to what I've seen for the Drakari stuff, it's still nonetheless rounded things out, and it's still given just that little bit of extra information. Sisters of Battle haven't really had that for a long time. They haven't had that kind of boost in story power, that boost in lore. Again, I don't want them to squander the opportunity to make the Sisters of Battle a force to be reckoned with within the Imperium. I mean, they should be. They should be a major player, but they're not, because they've basically been neglected for so long. I want them to actually be pushed forward a little bit, actually be brought into the limelight. Obviously, a big thing to hope for is a nicely done codex, but to be honest, Games Workshop have been doing a pretty cracking job with the codexes for quite a while now. Some of them have been a bit better than others, in terms of both rules and fluff. For instance, I'd say that from what I've been reading of the Drakari stuff, and like I say, I'm a little bit behind, but I'm getting there. From what I've been reading of the Drakari stuff, their stuff is so fluffy, it's so fun, it's just so nicely thought out, it's so appropriate for what they are. I would hope for the same thing for Sisters of Battle. I really would. When it comes to things like unique characters and so on, I don't think we'll. I'd like to see more, but I don't think we will. Actual unique characters, named characters, story relevant characters have kind of been on the decline in terms of support from Games Workshop for quite a while, I feel, and I really think that that's not exactly going to change when it comes to the Sisters of Battle Codex. This is of course assuming that they will get a Codex, but it would be daft if they didn't. If you're going to redo an entire line, if you're going to re-release an entire army, you don't do it without a Codex. There's no question that they'll get a Codex, absolutely no question. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. More than anything, more than kind of all the things that I'd like to see, more than all the things that I think they should get, I am genuinely just looking forward to seeing what they do. We're going to get an actual, even if it's only a surface level look into how they produce an army, how they design a new army. That's still more than we've had before, and I think even if it wasn't Sisters of Battle, it would excite me to know that we are getting that kind of look into Games Workshop and their processes, because it's just not something that we see. The fact that it is for one of the most sort of anticipated factions in terms of being updated, for I don't even know how long it's been since they were last updated, way too long. That's just the icing on the cake. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. But yeah, that's kind of what I think we'll see, what I'd like us to see, and I'd be interested to hear what you think. Is there anything in there that you particularly want? Is there anything that you don't want? Do you not want the choice, for instance, of armour types? I talked myself out of and then into that, and I don't know how I did it. In terms of things like vehicles, would you like to see them have more unique stuff like that? Would you like to see... Here's an interesting... Would you like to see Call take an interest in the Sisters of Battle, producing things like war gear for them? Or is... I say that, maybe not Call, maybe someone else, because I'm kind of getting a bit sick of Call, but yeah. That's an interesting thing that we might see a little bit of. Possibly. Maybe. That's the subject of an entirely different video, though. I've been having thoughts about that. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, what you would like to see from the Sisters of Battle release. And in the meantime, there's plenty of other things to click here. There's a couple of videos, there's Patreon, there's subscribe, all of that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And, well, we're back in it now, so I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.